BookTube, welcome back to my channel. It is Friday, September 13th. Yep, it's Friday the 13th. And we're here for a Friday Reads video. The book on the top has an odd shape. We're gonna get to that one later. But for now, we're gonna call this my Friday Reads slash big little announcement. Yeah. This week, I have a lot of books that I am working on. 3 of them I finished and a couple of them I can't talk about. So since I can't talk about all the books that I've been reading, I'm just gonna fill the spaces in this video with some other updates, which is where we'll get to later. But for now, we're gonna talk about the books that I finished this week. And I only finished 3 books, which is not great considering that this month I'm trying to read 30 books in 30 days. So far, I've only finished 6 books. Today's day 13. But I am in progress with several books that if I continue with the readings the way I have been, if I keep with my schedule, I will finish multiple books on one day, which means that at some point I will catch up. But I'm not really worried. But I'm going to tell you the books that I've finished since my last Friday Reads video, which was last Friday. And first one that I finished was Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote. This copy actually has a few short stories that appear after the novella, but I was only reading the novella. In this one, the main character is someone who's being written about. She's not telling her own story, but we meet her through the eyes of our narrator, who's an older man living in this apartment building, and Holiday Golightly, or Holly as she is known, she has a pretty outgoing, gregarious lifestyle, and she comes home late at night. She never seems to have a key to enter the apartment building, and so she rings the bell to ask someone to let her in. And so this narrator, he meets her because the man who was previously letting her in has decided he no longer wants to be awakened at all odd hours of the night. And so she starts ringing this man's doorbell. And so we meet her eventually through the relationship that he starts with her and the conversations that they have, how she reveals herself and the things that she reveals about her past and her present and what she thinks about her future, as well as how other people relate to her. And so this is a pretty complex story about human characteristics and human tendencies and what people want and what people want for themselves and what they want from other people and how they aim to get it. The narrator is not very likable just because he seems to be forcing a relationship on a young woman that he almost has nothing to offer her. He is a struggling writer himself, and he has nothing to offer her in terms of security. In fact, while he paints her as this young, flighty woman, she seems to have more to offer him in the way of introductions. But I loved this story. I'd never read it. I've never watched the movie, and so I was really happy to have read this one. It's really short. I read it in just a few hours. Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote. I talked about this one in my vlog that I posted a few days ago, and someone recommended another book by Truman Capote that I might like. And if you have other recommendations from Truman Capote, I'd love to hear them in the comments down below. The other 2 books that I finished this week, I can't talk about them yet because they are finalists for the BookTube prize that I'm judging this month. I will post my video review where I talk about all 6 of the finalists and share with you my ranking and whether or not the book that I considered my favorite of those 6 is the one that won the BookTube prize. But for now, just know that I read Happiness by Aminatta, Forna, and A Place for Us by Fatima, Farheen, Mirza. And while I can't talk about these books yet, I will give a gentle nod to my favorite of these 2. But I still have 4 other books that I'm comparing them with. So where these rank in that group of 6, you're gonna have to wait until the end of the month to hear a little bit more about that. But I read these 2 books this week. So these are the 3 books that I finished this week. And I'm in the process of reading several other books. I started rereading The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. This one is set in London. It's about a butler who has been raised to be a butler. He's been raised to be a gentleman's gentleman, And that is pretty much the extent of his ambitions, just to be the best at service. And while he and his father before him have been serving this English lord, now the ownership of the property that he works on has changed. He now has an American owner, an American boss. And while the story is very interesting about this man's life, how he came to become this gentleman's gentleman, it is also an allegory for the relationship between England and the United States, and some of the compromises that were made over the course of the wars, because this book is set a little bit in the past. And I read it last year and loved it. I'm rereading it this year, taking it a little bit more slowly because I want to make some notes on themes and comparisons and contrasts and symbols that the author presents in this one, because I want to make sure that I have adequate notes for when I do my Booker review. This is one of the books that won the Booker Prize. I'm going to be reviewing it in detail on my channel in the future. So started this one, haven't finished yet, kind of put it aside so that I could read something else. Another book that I started this week and put it aside for a little bit is History of the Rain by Neil Williams. This one was longlisted for the Booker Prize in 2014. That's the year when Richard Flanagan won for his novel Narrow Road to the Deep North. Other nominees were Joshua Ferris for How to Rise at a Decent Hour, Ali Smith for her novel How to Be Both, Karen Joy Fowler for her novel We Are All Completely Beside Ourselves. And I'm not sure how this book would rank over all the other books that had been longlisted that year, but from reading a couple of the books that I just mentioned in that list, I know that this didn't quite make the mark. The main character in this one is Ruthie Swain. Her father was a poet, and now that he has died, she seems to be having some kind of a breakdown. But she's also trying to trace the lineage of her father's family. And so she's revisiting her father's story, his father before him, as well as her great-grandfather's story. And so she's going through comparing the men in her ancestry to characters from books. Her father was a poet and had great interest in literature, and one of his legacies was that he left her this 3,000 volume library. And so through the narration, she makes comparisons to everything that she thinks and records to a character or an incident in one of the books that is in her library. And I'm finding it interesting, but also every time a book is mentioned, I feel like it takes me a little bit out of the narrative in some way, because I'm making that connection to that other literary work. I'm actually pretty intrigued by this book because the author is Irish, and I have had really good experiences with reading books by Irish authors in the last year or so. The other thing is that the main character is a young girl, young woman, and the author is a man. That gender difference is always something I'm eager to see if the author will pull off. But he addresses it quite early in the book by having the narrator, main character, say that she's been told that she writes like a man. So I'm looking forward to reading this, but I think I'm also looking forward to playing a game to see if over the course of the book, she actually does mention the 3,000 novels or 3,000 books that are part of her library, and how many books have I read from that list. So we'll get back to this at some point. I'm at page 63 right now, and I may just start reading again at the beginning just so I can take note of all the books that are mentioned. I also started a book that I shared in my library haul a few days ago, and that is Salman Rushdie's Quichotte. Quichotte. And I know it's Quichotte because the book opens with an explanation of how to pronounce it. It's called a quixotic note on pronunciation. Quichotte, pronounced Quichotte in French, and Quichotte in German, and Quichotte in Italian are alternative spellings or pronunciations of the Spanish, and it gives Quixote. The Portuguese also uses an SH sound rather than H sound for the X or J in the middle of Don Quixote's illustrious name. Cervantes himself would probably have said Quichotte in the Spanish of his time. For the purposes of this text, the recommended pronunciation is the elegant French Quichotte, for reasons which the text itself will make clear. But gentle reader, suit yourself. To each his or her or their own articulation of the universal dawn. I just started reading this one this morning, and I'm finding it fascinating. I've only read one other book by Salman Rushdie, and that was his Booker Prize winning book, Midnight's Children. But I feel like I'm familiar with Salman Rushdie's personality just from seeing him appear in the media. And I feel like this book continues his reputation for very sagacious snarkiness. I don't know if that's fair or not, but I'm liking how this book started. We're following a man who is an Indian man, Indian from India, and I love the way he describes himself. His little quip at the Indian Medical Center: I'm actually Indian too, dot not feather. But he is an older man from India living in the United States, and he's been watching TV to a point where he's lost some of his brain capacity just because he spent so much time consuming media. And he's developed an infatuation for a TV personality, and so decides to meet this person. And I'm absolutely loving the way Rushdie has set up the story, and how he makes reference to pop culture in a way that you know that he's also consuming this media, because how else would he know? But he presents it in such a judgmental way that you can't help but connect this story to him as the person. I'm really liking this so far. I'm not sure if it is Booker winner quality yet, so we'll have to kind of revisit this when I'm a little further into the story. Maybe by next week I'll have finished this book, and I can tell you that this is undoubtedly my pick for the Booker win. But since I haven't read any of the other picks, that would be a very biased prediction, but I'm liking this so far. More on this when I've gotten a little further. Other books that I'm in the process of, I started reading The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson, doing a buddy read of this one with Doris from Aldi Books, Heidi from My Reading Life, and Patrice Jones from Awesome Subscriber. So she doesn't have her own channel, but she subscribes to my channel, comments on my videos, and so I'm calling her Context Awesome Subscriber. But we're reading this book over the course of the month. We're reading about 20 pages or so per day, and this book talks about the migration of African Americans from the south of the United States to places in the north. Some of them moved because of the push factors, some of them moved because of the pull factors, most of them moved because of the combination. The buddy read experience is such an interesting one to participate in, because everyone reads for different reasons and has a different relationship with the text. While I'm reading, for me, I am making comparisons between some of the incidences and some of the themes that the author is presenting through this writing. In talking about experiences that have shown rivalries between people of very similar background, and comparing that with experiences that people are having with people outside of their caste. In this one, the author uses the term caste system and likens the racial differences and the racial divide in the United States to what we know from the caste system in India. And so she uses that as a very profound kind of exposition into some of the racism and racial barriers and segregation and Jim Crow laws that existed in the United States in the period that she's covering in this book. She talks about rivalries and resentment that some African Americans harbored against other people in their same racial experience. people used their resentment for other people's progress to hold back someone else, even as they try to fulfill their own ambitions, and likens that to how African Americans were treated or even just viewed by people outside of their race. It's fascinating, the stories that she tells, but it's also even more fascinating to make comparisons between those experiences that people have, both inter and intra caste, if you will. I'm going to be continuing this. I'm going to be raving about it in my next Friday Reads video. I'm almost sure about it. The next book that I'm in the process of reading is Stanley Middleton's Holiday. This is the 1974 co-winner for the Booker Prize. This one shared the prize with Nadine Gordimer's The Conservationist. I read this one earlier this year, but I just need to reread some parts of it so that I can have some notes from my review video, which is coming up soon. If you missed my review of Nadine Gordimer's The Conservationist, I posted that a few days ago, so I'll link it in the description box down below if you haven't watched it yet. You can go see. As you know, I'm reading all the books that have won the Booker Prize this year and posting chronological reviews of the winners. So this is going to be the next book that I review in that series. And so those are the books that I'm in the process of reading, well, except for one. The next book, the last book that I have read several times this week is Says Moo, Farm Animal Playbook. And as you can tell, this is a baby book. And I'm not just reading it because I'm trying to read all the short books on my TBR. Someone gave this book to me. And the reason they gave this book to me is the reason for my big little announcement. Sometime, not too long from now, I'm going to be reading this book to a baby, my baby. This is my way of letting you know that there's going to be a Runwright baby sometime soon. And someone gave me this book to start reading to the child in utero. There's going to be a Runwright baby, a brown baby. We haven't decided what the baby's going to be called, but there's going to be a baby. And for those of you who are watching who are parents, you will know that my life is about to change in a big way. So if I don't read my 30 books in 30 days in September, who knows when I'll be able to complete that challenge. But there's going to be a baby coming soon. So that is my way of letting you know that my life is about to change in a big way, or a little way, I suppose. Big little announcement. Baby coming soon. For now, I am reading all the adult books that I can before the baby comes. And so that's my big little announcement and the end of my Friday Reads for September 13th. I'm sure that I'll be hearing from you about baby, the Runwright baby. We'll talk in the comments. I look forward to hearing from you. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Subscribe if you want to see more. In the next few days, I'm going to be posting my next installment in my Booker Prize winning reviews. I also have another on-haul video to share with you. I'd love to talk with you in the comments about any of the things I mentioned in this video. So we'll talk down there. And until next time, happy reading. Bye.